is that Marvel and Disney, they are doing something very similar with the Fantastic Four, much like what they are doing right now with Ironheart, what they did with Snow White, as well as what they did with the Acolyte series back in June of 2024. And, well, a lot of this has to do with the financial cutbacks and the financial collapse surrounding the Fantastic Four first steps.
So these are 6 woke points that are all in this movie, which makes this movie fully woke. It's not just like one thing. They were like, yeah, they did this, but no, it's fully there.
5th, and ahead of its release date, they've been actually going into a lot of problems between both Marvel Studios and the Walt Disney Company, between the test screenings labeled as lackluster and the reshoots labeled as problematic. There's been a lot of pushback going against this film as well. There's a lot of Marvel fans that aren't quite fond of the fact that they are using Shala Bal, the female Silver Surfer.
So, the question is, can a movie be woke and good? The majority of the time, no. The majority of the time, everything woke turns to shit. So, we'll see.
And shoehorning it into the press tour for Fantastic Four. However, with the Walt Disney Company and Marvel Studios still struggling over the Fantastic Four test screening failures, along with the problematic reshoots, Pedro is only making matters worse the more times he fires back at the critics and fans. A lot of pushback going against this film as well. There's a lot of Marvel fans that aren't quite fond of the fact that they are using Shala Bal, the female Silver Surfer played by Julia Garner, well above the character of Norrin Radd. And that's just one thing. We also know that Pedro Pascal and his politics are not helping, and it's only getting worse from this point. With Pedro Pascal making some of the worst decisions during the press tour for Fantastic Four, one major development going on now involves how he yet again attacked fans and said some of the most offensive things yet toward Marvel fans that is already creating a division ahead of the release on July 25th. Pedro delivered the following that are just really beginning to actually have a lot of Marvel fatigue and Pedro Pascal fatigue. That is very much real. And like I said earlier, his politics, his overall view on activism, it is not helping at all in the least when it comes down to Marvel and Disney. And the fact that Marvel and Disney allows him to go on that train wreck of viewing, of course, or spewing his politics into the public eye, it goes to show you that they really don't care at all. However, with the Walt Disney Company and Marvel Studios still struggling over the Fantastic Four test screening failures, along with the problematic reshoots, Pedro is only making matters worse the more times he fires back at the critics and fans. Now, Pedro recently delivered the following in a very defensive way that made things worse. I would definitely say that I'm a proud male feminist, activist, and one that defends LGBTQ rights, and most certainly diversity, equity, and inclusion. And you know, like all of those important things that belong to stay in this industry.
Is Pedro Pascal trying to save the world, or sabotage his own movie? Because instead of hyping up Fantastic Four, the man's out here crying over Stephen Colbert, dragging Trump into every interview, and giving what sounds more like a campaign speech than a Marvel promo. And Disney, they're reportedly sweating bullets behind the scenes. Pedro was supposed to be Marvel's fresh face, the guy to lead Fantastic Four into the spotlight and finally erase the bad taste left by all the past reboots. But now, he's making waves for all the wrong reasons. Instead of building hype for the movie, his recent press appearances are sparking confusion, division, and a whole lot of side eyes. And if you're getting flashbacks to the Rachel Zegler situation, you're not alone. Let's rewind a bit.
The Fantastic Four are going to be a massive fixture for the next several upcoming years in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Reed Richards specifically, supposedly, is going to be a huge part of what Marvel does going forward. And of course, he's played by Pedro Pascal. We've seen Marvel go all in when it comes to the marketing for this, for everything. And I don't know about you, but I'm sick and tired of seeing Pedro Pascal anywhere.
The movie hasn't even dropped, and yet it's already got more behind-the-scenes drama than most full seasons of Disney Plus content. From May test screening reviews, to the bloated budget, to reshoots that reportedly weren't even on the calendar until March, this film has been one giant question mark. Now layer in Pascal's off-brand commentary, and suddenly, Disney's dream reboot is towing the line of PR disaster. Shala Bal as Silver Surfer? That casting alone split the internet in half. Add in the fact that this reboot has to live up to decades of fan expectations while rebooting one of Marvel's trickiest franchises, and you've got a recipe that demands precision, not distractions. And now the fans are talking. Let's dig into why Fantastic Four is shaping up to be Marvel's biggest gamble yet, and how the latest headlines might just be the final blow. The press tour should have been Marvel's victory lap, Pedro Pascal front and center, the media on their side, and fans finally getting excited about a reboot that could reset the entire franchise. But that's not how it's playing out, because instead of sticking to script, Pascal started going off script. Way off. In a series of recent appearances, Pascal's comments have completely shifted the focus away from the movie itself.
This is on the cover of Vanity Fair. Everyone wants a piece of Pedro. Weird like this, by the way. This is for Vanity Fair. You got women's hands on him. You got big black man hands on him here.
What the? That's not an AI thing? That's real?
This is from Vanity Fair. This is real. But
The freak?
no.
That's gay. Sorry. Am I allowed to say that?
Instead of talking about Fantastic Four's cosmic adventure or his role as Reed Richards, he's giving passionate takes that fans say feel completely disconnected from what they actually care about, the movie. Now, this wouldn't be a major issue if Marvel wasn't already on thin ice with audiences. See, fan trust is already fragile. After the Marvels underperformed and Ironheart got quietly pushed to the side, Fantastic Four was supposed to be Marvel's clean slate, a big budget reset that could finally pull things back into orbit. But now, the headlines aren't about how cool the new suits look, or how epic the storyline is. They're about Pedro Pascal making statements that have nothing to do with space missions or multiverse chaos. It's the kind of shift that derails a campaign, especially when the movie's budget is creeping toward $300 million with marketing included. That kind of money needs every fan on board.
Fantastic Four flops. It wasn't good. Hypothetically, how does Marvel move on from that? I know Spider-Man is now coming out before Avengers Doomsday, and people are saying that that's going to be kind of like their safety net, but I really don't think that's going to work.
Not half of them logging off. And with test screenings already being described as flat and uneven, Disney needed the press rollout to be flawless. Instead, what they've got is noise, distraction, and another round of online debates that have nothing to do with Doom, Galactus, or who's the real Silver Surfer. It's déjà vu, and not the good kind. But the trouble doesn't stop with Pedro's interviews. Behind the scenes, the situation is just as unstable, and we're talking reshoots, executive tension, and a production pipeline that's stretched way too thin. Let's talk about how everything behind the scenes is quietly unraveling. While the headlines focus on Pedro Pascal's interviews, the real storm has been brewing behind the scenes for months. And it's not pretty. According to insiders close to the production, Fantastic Four has quietly gone through multiple waves of reshoots. Some so last minute they weren't even on the calendar until early this year. And we're not just talking about minor pickups or touch-ups. Full sequences were reworked, replaced, or delayed after early test audiences reportedly called the original cut tonally confusing and visually uneven. Now, here's where it really gets concerning. Reshoots on any big movie are normal, but when they start adding up, both in time and dollars, they signal something deeper: uncertainty at the executive level. Marvel Studios and Disney execs have reportedly disagreed over how to balance the darker, science-driven narrative of Reed Richards with the modern, fan service approach Marvel's known for. The result? Creative whiplash. One version tries to go gritty and grounded. The next, quippy and cosmic. Neither quite hits the mark. And then there's the budget. Originally estimated around $200 million, the costs have ballooned.
It's already known that Fantastic Four is going to be like such an important and detrimental part to the Doomsday and Secret War story. So if their introduction, for some whatever reason, doesn't land with the audience, I don't get how they can make Doomsday like, the success it needs to be.
Marketing alone is projected to hit $100 million, and with the reshoots factored in, some industry analysts are saying Fantastic Four now needs to cross the billion-dollar mark just to break even. That's a staggering benchmark for a reboot that hasn't even proven it can win over the fan base. Production delays have only added fuel to the fire. Set insiders claimed some departments were working around the clock in the final weeks leading up to the reshoots, racing to meet visual effects deadlines that kept slipping. Multiple post-production vendors were brought in to salvage sequences that didn't test well, leading to even more inconsistencies across tone and pacing. So while fans were debating casting choices and press comments, the internal chaos was already threatening to sink the ship. And the cracks are showing. But nothing shook fans more than the reveal of Marvel's boldest and most controversial character switch in the movie. Let's talk about the Silver Surfer situation. Of all the choices Marvel made for this reboot, the one that really set the internet ablaze was the Silver Surfer reveal. And no, we're not talking about the iconic Norrin Radd gliding through galaxies in reflective chrome. This time, the studio flipped the script. Hard. Instead of going with the classic comic book version, Fantastic Four introduces Shah LaBelle as the new Silver Surfer. That's right, the character, who in the source material is actually Norrin Radd's lover, has now been reimagined as the silver-skinned Herald of Galactus. A bold move, no doubt, but bold doesn't always mean accepted. Within hours of the reveal, social media was divided. Some fans praised the choice as a creative refresh, arguing it offered a new emotional layer and allowed Marvel to spotlight a lesser-known character. Others? They weren't buying it. "Where's Norrin?" trended for nearly a full day.
By the way, I'm not trying to like prey on its downfall or anything. Like, I am genuinely super excited for the Fantastic Four. I'm just being real. Marvel has been doing flop after flop. Thunderbolts was a flop. Yes, it's like a literal fact. So in my opinion, it is reasonable to be concerned that this movie might not be good, or, you know, it just might not perform well. And if that happens, like, what's next? We'd like to welcome back Iron Man, Steve Rogers, Scarlett Johansson, because we can't make anything else for her.
Reddit threads exploded with side-by-side comparisons. YouTubers went full reaction mode. And longtime fans felt like Marvel had swapped nostalgia for novelty. Again. Now, here's the kicker. This wasn't just a minor character adjustment. The Silver Surfer has always been a fan-favorite figure in the Marvel cosmos. He represents cosmic tragedy, sacrifice, and philosophical depth. Replacing him so drastically wasn't just a casting decision, it was a tone setter. And to some fans, it screamed of yet another studio trying to force reinvention instead of honoring legacy. What's worse? Marvel didn't even build up to it. There was no slow burn reveal, no teaser campaign. The announcement dropped with no warning, catching fans completely off guard. It felt like a surprise drop with no safety net, and the reaction proved just how risky that approach was. Shah LaBelle might win hearts when the film drops, but right now, it's another item on the growing list of decisions that fans feel disconnected from, and in a reboot this expensive, that kind of disconnection can tank momentum before opening weekend even arrives. But while Marvel debates canon, fans are asking a different question. Why does Disney keep finding itself in this same cycle? Let's talk about the franchise déjà vu that everyone saw coming. If all of this feels strangely familiar, like we've been here before, that's because we have. Fantastic Four's rollout is starting to echo the exact same missteps Disney made with Snow White. And we're not just talking about fan outrage, we're talking full-blown PR collapse in slow motion. Remember how Snow White was supposed to be a nostalgic reimagining with a modern twist? Instead, it became a case study in how to lose your audience before the trailer even drops. Rachel Zegler's press tour went viral for all the wrong reasons, sidestepping the film's themes in favor of controversial commentary, clashing with fans online, and painting the movie as a total departure from what made the original beloved in the first place. Sound familiar? Now, Pedro Pascal's stepping into almost the exact same narrative.
So I went to the Fantastic Four event in Berlin today. And excuse me if I look like crap, because I feel like crap. I've been on the go since 7 a.m. and I'm pissed, because that shit was not a fan event.
His press appearances are generating headlines that don't focus on Fantastic Four, but on completely unrelated topics. And while the content of his interviews might differ from Zegler's, the outcome feels nearly identical. Fans turning away, early buzz turning negative, and executives scrambling to regain control. The pattern is becoming crystal clear. Disney announces a legacy IP reboot. The casting creates initial buzz, then a wave of off-brand press derails the conversation. The studio goes quiet, the fandom fractures, the hype dies. And by the time the movie hits theaters, it's already climbing uphill against the weight of its own missteps. What's wild is that Disney should have seen this coming. After the Snow White backlash, most assumed they'd tighten up press tours, train talent, and learn from the chaos. But here we are, same story, different franchise, and this time, the financial stakes are even higher. Because unlike Snow White, Fantastic Four is a cornerstone of Marvel's reboot strategy. This isn't just a remake, it's supposed to be a launching pad for the next phase of the MCU. But if this is the launch, fans are already wondering what the crash landing will look like. And that brings us to the real elephant in the room: Disney's selective silence. One of the biggest frustrations echoing across fan spaces right now isn't just about Pedro Pascal's press tour, it's about how Disney is handling it. Or, more accurately, how they're not. Because when Rachel Zegler's offbeat interviews started spiraling during Snow White's rollout, Disney jumped in fast. According to industry insiders, execs pulled her from press rounds, PR teams worked overtime to clean up messaging, and social media consultants stepped in to quiet the backlash. It wasn't a perfect fix, but it was a clear signal. Disney knew there was a problem. But with Fantastic Four, silence. Pedro Pascal has delivered multiple headline-making interviews that have very little to do with his role as Reed Richards and more to do with his personal perspectives.
Let me explain. So even like before the event started, the communication was horrible. Nobody knew if you needed a ticket because there was a site that gave out tickets, but nobody confirmed it. Nobody knew about it. We signed up the first day that page showed up. I was pretty sure it was going to be a data scam, but I was like, it was free. And if I hadn't signed up, I wouldn't have gotten into that event. But nobody confirmed it. Nobody knew if it was legit, not even the people who organized this event.
Yet this time, there's no corporate pushback, no emergency rebranding, no shift in media strategy. If anything, Disney seems to be letting it ride, and fans have definitely noticed. To many, it feels like a double standard. Why does one actor get publicly reined in while another gets a free pass? Why are the rules different when the stakes are arguably even higher? Some argue that it comes down to name value. Pascal is currently one of the most bankable actors in the business, with The Mandalorian, The Last of Us, and now Fantastic Four all in his portfolio. Disney may be hesitant to challenge him because, let's face it, he's a walking brand, but that strategy comes with a cost: credibility. When studios apply different standards to different stars, it doesn't just affect the marketing, it erodes trust. And in a fandom already questioning Marvel's direction, trust is exactly what Disney can't afford to lose right now. The bottom line, fans don't want drama. They want consistency. They want to know that a billion-dollar franchise is being handled with care, not played like a PR experiment. And speaking of experiments, this next part might be the most telling sign that Marvel has lost its connection with its core audience. Let's talk about the rise of the woke Hollywood narrative and how Fantastic Four just walked straight into it. At this point, Fantastic Four isn't just caught in a marketing mess. It's become the latest target in a much larger culture war. The phrase woke Hollywood has been thrown around a lot lately, often used to describe movies or franchises that fans believe prioritize messaging over storytelling. And whether you agree with the term or not, the reaction to Fantastic Four proves one thing loud and clear: the audience is hyper-aware, and they're not afraid to push back. What's wild is how predictable this spiral has become. A high-budget superhero reboot gets announced. The studio makes bold creative decisions. Some applauded, some questioned. Then comes a wave of press coverage where the stars and creatives emphasize themes like representation, identity, or social justice. And suddenly, the internet divides. With Fantastic Four, that division hit early. The casting of Shia LaBeouf as Silver Surfer was one spark. Pascal's viral interviews added fuel. And from there, the narrative built itself. Another Marvel project where fans say they're being told how to feel rather than invited to get excited. And here's where Marvel keeps missing the mark. Audiences aren't upset that the cast is diverse. They're not angry about new ideas. What they're frustrated with is the pattern. The sense that every major reboot is now accompanied by a lecture instead of a celebration. The storytelling feels like it takes a backseat to the headline. And the danger? When people start tuning out, they don't just skip the movie, they stop trusting the brand. Marvel used to be the gold standard in escapism. These were the movies people lined up for, not to be taught, but to be transported. And for a while, they pulled it off. But now, with each new release, the balance seems off. And Fantastic Four is shaping up to be the test case for how much patience the audience still has. So the question isn't just, will this movie flop? It's deeper than that. It's, has Marvel lost its touch? And that leads us to what could be the most overlooked factor in this entire situation: the audience itself. While Marvel and Disney scramble behind the scenes, one voice keeps getting louder: the fans. And they're not just complaining. They're warning. Across Reddit, YouTube, and every comment section in between, longtime viewers are saying the same thing. We just want a good movie, not politics, not press tour drama, not a reboot that feels more like a rebrand, just storytelling that connects. It's not about being against change, it's about feeling left out. When every headline is focused on controversy or message, fans start to wonder, where do they fit in? Are they still the audience these movies are made for, or are they just a box office afterthought? And this disconnect? It's not new. It's been building since Phase 4. And if Fantastic Four doesn't course correct, it might be the moment fans finally walk away. Not with outrage, but with silence. Because at the end of the day, fans don't want to fight. They want to believe again. And right now, Marvel isn't giving them much to believe in. Fantastic Four was supposed to be Marvel's clean slate, a fresh chapter, a chance to remind fans why they fell in love with superheroes in the first place. But instead, it's walking a tightrope, and the safety net is wearing thin. From Pedro Pascal's press tour detours to the risky Silver Surfer switch, from costly reshoots to divided fan reactions, this isn't just a rough rollout. It's a signal, a warning that even Marvel, once the most reliable name in entertainment, isn't immune to losing the plot. And for Disney, this isn't just about one movie. It's about trust. It's about perception. And it's about the very real possibility that their billion-dollar reboot strategy could implode. Again, because what audiences are asking for isn't complicated. They don't need perfection. They don't even need nostalgia. They just want to feel like they matter, like their time, their excitement, their ticket means something. Right now, Fantastic Four feels like a franchise on the edge. It could still land. It could still surprise us. But only if the studio listens. Only if the story comes first. Only if they remember that movies aren't campaigns, they're experiences. And if they don't, well, they might just end up with another headline no studio wants to read. Fans didn't show up, again.